seconds to load on mobile, and that came in 5 seconds. So if you think your website is cranking at 5 seconds and you waited for that to come in, right? And so you're here and you're expecting to read that, and just maybe about now you can read it. That's what your users are experiencing. So my question is, should it be a priority? I kind of think that it does. And I have 3 slides from different levels of Google. This basically is saying that when people go to your website, if it doesn't load fast, 75% of the people they interviewed at Google conference, you said that speed was important. And it was so much stress for them if the site was slow, it would equate it to watching a horror movie when they were going through the testing. So speed is definitely important. We saw this slide yesterday, I think, bounce rate. If it takes 5 seconds to load, more likely 90% people are going to bounce off your site. So it definitely affects conversions. And it does affect SEO. Now right now the speed update says that it's only going to affect the slowest of slow sites. But you know that if you're faster than the slow people, it's going to work a lot better. And your customers are going to have a better user experience. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. So people say to me, you know, can we see a case study? Do you have an example? So I'm going to go through 2 things real quick. These are websites in the health and wellness space. And if 1 month I said to you, we can increase sessions 25%, if you can increase 31% the duration of those sessions, if you increase 10% in pages per session, and 26% reduction in the bounce rate. So if you did a project where it took a month to do the project and 1 month after the project was this your results, would it make sense? You might say, you know what, the spike seed might be a priority that I should focus on, because here's some numbers. This is a Google Analytics screen. This website, the guy said that I could share his name, it's called Order of Man. He's been doing the same thing the same way for 2 years. He has a subscription-based service, the podcast, and you can see the orange line is flat. You can see the blue line has the increase, and the metrics are there. And it was really a site speed enhancement and a WordPress theme enhancement. We'll get into the 3 areas that you should take a look at. So this was a huge project. It was 6 months long. It was probably a $50,000 project. But in the first quarter after it was done, he had 4 million new organic sessions from search. That's pretty cool. And 3 million new users from search. So, you know, if you could do this, that would be your priority. And here's the numbers on this. So you can see the combination of reducing site speed, fixing some elements on the website, fixing some schema information, and focusing on SEO combined together in 6 months had a huge buy for their website and their keywords and their ranking. So those 2 examples should show you that it's kind of important to focus on site speed. So people go, oh my God, how do I start? You know, do I look at Pingdom? Do I look at these different tools? What kind of metrics should I be looking at? And I really believe that, and one of the reasons why I like Exoic, that site speed is about the user experience. It's not really about looking at one KPI, a key performance indicator, right? If you focus on just a couple KPIs, you're going to miss the overall experience for your customers. And we're gonna go through sections, but I want you to think about what is the metric for your website that's right. Are you monetizing through ads? Are you monetizing through courses? Are you monetizing through affiliate revenue or products? And then how do you measure your user experience in each one of those areas? Okay, so first thing you have to do is make sure that you have your real-time infrastructure tracking set up, right? So Google Analytics, Tag Manager. You want to set up Tag Manager and you want to learn how to use it. All these slides are available. If you go to our website, bizbuddy.com, you'll see at the end, site-speed-matters. You can put in your email, we'll send it to you right now. Or I think Tyler is going to email them out to everybody. Tag Manager is really cool because it's a container that runs off of your website. So when you have scripts that need to run, they'll execute in there in that container and not on your website, and you could actually increase your page speed with Google. But you want to set up all these tools, make sure you're familiar how to use them. They're all free. Big data is great from Exoic. Catchpoint is a paid one. We use that, and I'll show you a couple screenshots from that. But before you really start understanding your page speed, you need to understand how your site is currently working, and these are the tools that we love to do that. So we break up site speed into infrastructure, your WordPress theme, and your total user experience. So a lot of times I'm talking to somebody about hosting, and they're like, okay, we use this host or that host, and that's really what hosting is. And you guys all have digital properties that are assets that produce income. If you were a retailer and had a storefront, if you were an organization that had 50 employees, you would have an IO&L. So what is an IO&L, right? It's an infrastructure and operations leader. It is the technical dude that knows how everything in your organization works, how your infrastructure works, how your caching works, how your web firewalls work, if you're gonna get hacked or not. Your IO&L in a typical larger size organization would be the person that manages all this. So when we talk about hosting with our customers, we don't really talk about the web host. It's, are you using the right versions of PHP on your website? Changing from PHP 5, which most hosts have, to 7 is a 63% increase in performance, just in that alone. So, it's incredible, right? So these are the things that are important to us. Anycast DNS, Zoic uses that. It's extremely fast, it works extremely well. SSL, HTTP2, making sure that these protocols are, employed in your infrastructure. So this is kind of a challenge because a lot of organizations just have a web host, and that web host, when something goes wrong, points to the web developer, and the web developer points back to the web host, and then you guys get in the middle of Zoic. It's just crazy. So you want to try to create what we call a purpose-built system. Lay out your infrastructure, look at how the different pieces connect. Talk to your tech team and your friends and your people or us about what these different things mean and how they fit together. So once you have that infrastructure in place and you have a purpose-built system, this is how you measure it. So these are all key terms. I'm not going to bore you to death with them, but you can Google some of what they are, but your DNS response time, your server response time, the time to first byte, and render start. These are all metrics that you should look at to know, is your infrastructure running well? Is your network infrastructure, your CDN, those components, if they're working right and your infrastructure is secure and scalable, you'll have a great foundation for your website. First pane is interesting because that's when the first activity starts to happen on the browser. The screen comes up, the background starts to change, text starts coming up. So if you fix your infrastructure and make sure it's running fast and those metrics give you that, then you can start looking at your software, right? So your website is more than just the hosting, it's your software. Fast themes and solid plugins. How many people have installed a plugin and had their WordPress site crash? Everybody, right? So you really have to be careful with the components that you install. Some of the plugins are not built for responsive design, or they don't have non-blocking code, or they don't manage those components well, or they're not meant for a site with 40,000 posts or 100,000 posts because of the way that they do it. So it's important to sit back and look at your hardware infrastructure and then move to your software infrastructure. And are you using modern development tools? Do you have static file caching? Those things make a huge difference. And then I mentioned solid plugins and fast themes again because we can't emphasize that enough. When we manage the development for our customers, we really don't allow them to add any plugin that they want without checking us first, because so many times people will update a plugin or add something that just breaks everything. So if you got your software together, these are the metrics that are important to measure. That first contentful pane. That means that your host has delivered a response, it's on my phone, I'm starting to see it. Dominant interactive is really cool. You need to measure that because that is when most of the content is loaded and the user has the ability to start to engage with the site. And then DOM content loaded is when everything is done and input fields work and they can navigate. So you want to focus on building robust code. You want to measure these three components and do it over time. Create a little Excel spreadsheet and every month measure where you're at. And as you make enhancements and improvements, these things will improve. the last part is synergistic tools. So you want to measure how these tools fit together. So how your display ads work, how personalized content works, lead generation. We do a lot of lead generation, segmentation, being able to tell that the customer's already signed up for your email list. You don't want to ask them to sign up for email again. You want to show the next thing in your sales funnel for them. So how all these tools work together are important. Your help desk support. I don't know if anybody has on their website a little icon for help, get help, you know. We have that, and a lot of our customers have that sell products or services or subscription agreements. That software is typically some of the slowest software in the world, and it loads huge scripts. So you may want to look at changing your website to just have one support-focused page. Not on your home page, not on a web page, but you have a big support button in your header. So all those slow scripts for support only load when somebody needs support. So it's all part of the process of optimization, and we call this working well together, that your hosting, your infrastructure, your website theme, and all your components work well together. And this is what you measure here, the document complete all the way through the web page response. So the web page responses gives you an idea of when everything is totally loaded. You know, and sometimes that number is high, which is okay, because the DOM complete is where you want, you know, for user engagement. That's really what Google looks at. So does that kind of make sense how I'm lumping things into 3 buckets? It's a different way of looking at site speed than just getting a KPI of, you know, what Pingdom says and saying, oh, I'm good. So it's really about focusing on that user experience. The same way that ads are laid out with the user experience, you want to lay out your website and your infrastructure and your tools to do that. So here's 5 ways you can make a difference, you know, right now. So there's some actionable steps. People always say, well, geez, what can I do? In what order should we do them? And this is how we attack it. We'll focus on server response time, making sure that Google Tag Manager is in there. Fixing your images is a huge one. And I have some free tools that we'll show you that you can use. Your JavaScript, your CSS, all these components can be what's called minified or concatenated, and it makes the file smaller and they load faster. And then making sure that you don't have any render blocking CSS. So Google has a bunch of tools to show you that. So these are 5 really important things. I hope you can see that. What it is this is Google PageSpeed Insights. The web server is responding in 39.39 seconds, or 390 milliseconds. Google says your server should respond in less than 200 milliseconds. That's really hard to hit unless your host is really, really soon. If you're way over that, you know, you could forget doing any SEO. I have a slide to show you on that. So that's one of the things. Use Google PageSpeed Insights, one of the free tools. Look at your server response time. Talk to your hosting company. Get that fixed. And then you can see, same service gives you that there's render blocking resources here, right? So what that means is before that page could be interactive with the customer, these resources, which are jQuery, which is usually used in like forms, those resources have to load. And sometimes those resources take a little bit to load. So you want to get your page to be interactive and then have those resources load asynchronously, it's called. So you can do these tests on your own, see if you have issues, and then talk to your developer about how to take a look at some of them. So we love data as much as these guys, and I analyze the hell out of it. And we bought a network monitoring system called Catchpoint because it gives me so much data. So this was a customer's website, and their host responds in 1,800 milliseconds. So what that means is I go to their website, and before anything happens, their hosting company is taking 1,800 milliseconds to say, yeah, I'm here. So if you see this number on your website or on your friends' websites, they need help. You know, any amount of SEO you do is not going to help, because now you're in that pile that Google says are the slowest sites. So we use this IFF, if and only if. If and only if it's less than 200 milliseconds, Google is super happy with you. 4,800 is what we see typically with a lot of different hosting companies. And even DNS. You know, it's 162 milliseconds. It should be 9 milliseconds. So that lookup time, all those things make a difference. So that was number 1 on the step that I gave you. Number 2 was Google Tag Manager. There's 800K of the total download that's in scripts. Some of those are like Google Analytics. If you use any help desk software, your email software has a tracking code, right, on every page so you can tell when somebody opens. You want to offload all those scripts from being downloaded on your website into Google Tag Manager. It'll reduce the weight of your total page and make things run so much quicker. The third thing is images. There's 3 meg here of images. This total download size for a page, you want to try to keep 2 meg or lower. So that comes into your website design. If you have, say, a blog category page and you have a ton of images on there, you can work, with your developer to maybe change the size of the images, make it a little bit smaller, put a little bit more text, still make it look beautiful and still have the images, but make sure you're not loading 10 megabyte of content at a time. And there's a whole bunch of tools to optimize images, and I'll show you some of our favorite ones. Same thing with optimizing the JavaScript and HTML. So on this person's website, it's hard to see here, but this is 200 milliseconds, 400, 800. Every 200 milliseconds, this is would be a film strip, we call it. And we don't even begin to see this person's website show up for 2 seconds. Right? So that means the user is waiting for 2 seconds before it even begins to load, and then it loads really, really slowly. So when we're talking to this person, she says, well, my SEO is great. Look at my graph. It's increasing. This is last year, this is now. She's got, a 10% increase. And you can't see the numbers on there because they're too small. But it went from 11,800 to 12,900. You got 800 new people. If you fix those core SEO issues, you'll add a lot more people. We've seen lifts of 20 to 30% organic traffic month after rebuilding, redesigning websites that are quick and fast. So it really does make a big difference. This is a view of web page response time. It's 126 milliseconds. DNS answers in 13. You can see by 400 milliseconds, and your human's eyes blink in the 300 to 500 millisecond range. So by the time your eyes blink after loading the site, it starts to load. And by 1200 milliseconds, the whole document is completely loaded. And then all of our scripts for help desk software and everything run. And while I was writing this presentation, I said to myself, damn, this is my own website. I'm going to create just a support page and move all the support scripts only to the support page, so that the home page doesn't have to go through, a total web page response time of 3,300. So this is one of our websites, and there's plenty of tools that you could do to test to make a big difference. Web page test is a really common test. Has anybody run this on their website? Yeah. So sometimes the tool gets a little goofy with static content or CDN. If you're using Cloudflare and you have certain settings set, or your CDN is kind of masked by a DNS naming record or something technical like that, it won't detect that you have it, or it gives you a hard time for caching files. And the ones that it's barking at me here are our help desk software, which are images of ourselves. So we see a lot of websites when we analyze them, they use some lead generation software or some help desk software, and they put a picture of themselves or a picture of their team, and they don't crop the image. So it's 800K because it's a high quality image, and you don't really realize it, but that gets added into your total page load. And those other services really aren't aware of how to optimize images. So you have to kind of look at your third-party services. That was part of the whole holistic thing. Pingdom is a very common test. you should run this all the time and take a look at your load time and your performance grade and set benchmarks and every week see where you're at. And they have a free uptime monitor, so you can run that too. It'll tell you when your website's down. So these are really common good benchmarks to use and to see where you rank with some of those statistics. And you can test them from different cities. So this is important too. If your web hosting company is in New York and you test from New York, you're going to have better load times than if your business is elsewhere and it loads. So, you know, you should only see like 140 millisecond difference. If I go back to this last slide. If you're testing in California and your server's in New York, your load time should probably be 140 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds different because of latency going across the country. But what happens is networks get congested and things slow down, and sometimes that's a lot worse, and that's when you want to look at using a CDN or some type of cache to help you. And that's what these guys are talking about with the cache inside their software too. This is probably the most technical tool. I don't like using it as much because there's so much information. This was mentioned yesterday, PageSpeed, as one of the Google testing tools, and this is available in Chrome. So you go to Chrome and you right click and say inspect, and you go to the audit tab and you run an audit. And it tells you everything about what's going on. So what's interesting is Chrome, when you say yes, aggregate data, and it's set to that by default, I think, they capture this data for every website that you visit. And they send it back to themselves and they anonymize it and aggregate it. And when you go to Google PageSpeed Insights, it'll say, here's the analysis of what we did, but here's compared to user data that we have on how your website loads. So they use this information to kind of give you a ranking. We saw yesterday whether you're in the top third, middle third, or bottom third. This will have a lot of great information in it. So, you know, I can see that my scripting, which is my help desk software, is taking 1,300 milliseconds to finish loading. My rendering is done in 280 milliseconds. So before you even can blink an eye, all my images have rendered, everything is paging, and the screen's ready to go. So that's pretty cool. But when I look at my help desk software, I'm like, oh geez, you know, maybe I just want to create a focused help desk page. I really won't get into too many of these, unless in the comments time we want to dig into them. But these are all the things that we implement for our sites. Static file caching, there's if you use WordPress, there's a great plugin, WP Rocket. We absolutely love that. We use that everywhere. And it has add-ons for Cloudflare and object caching, and I'll show you a couple other things when I get to a slide at the end. Make sure you get a CDN configured, because your images are probably the biggest component of traffic and weight, what we call weight in a website. Get in a developer community and start asking around, hey, how is this plugging? How does it work? You know, we're in a couple of different Slack groups, and we have a list of plugins that we love and ones that we don't want to let people install on our servers because they're just sucky plugins. So you really want to ask around what you're using. Just don't implement something because it has a cool feature. Make sure it's performant, which means it runs fast and it's built to scale. Persistent object caching is a technology that most hosts may have available to you, but it's a little bit more difficult to set up. But it's something that if you have a large site and you're in the WordPress admin with your editors, a lot of time you should be using. We have a couple of editors that have 14 to 20 editors, and I'll show you a 70% improvement in how fast pages load inside WordPress in the admin editor just by using object caching. And from a human resources perspective, it saves a ton of time. A little dry here. The other biggest thing is what we call WAF, which is Web Application Firewall. And there's a really cool program called WordFence that'll run on your WordPress site. We absolutely hate it because it's so heavy. And I'm a firm believer that security should be at the edge of your network, not on your host. So by that I mean, if there's a DDoS attack or someone is trying to connect to your network and they shouldn't be there, your edge of your network, which is a combination of CDN and security, should be able to keep them out. If you put out all that load on your server, it doesn't really need to be there because network security should be at the edge. That's a really advanced technique, something when you get everything else fixed you can take a look at. And focus on prioritizing your visible content. Make sure your pages load above the content first. And WP Rocket has a really great feature. You just click a button and it'll optimize your CSS and it'll send your website to their service off-site where they regenerate all the CSS so that your above the fold content loads first. So that's pretty cool. And then we do some advanced network routing. We do what's called Border Gateway Protocol, which essentially is if someone's in California and they're visiting the server in New York and the route is going through Chicago and there's congestion, it'll go through Dallas instead. So, but that just shaves off milliseconds, and that's really only important when you're scaling to 50,000 active users at a time. So these are the tools that we love. WP Rocket. Key CDN, which is a great CDN, has a tool called Optimus, and they have a paid version, which is only 39 bucks, I think, which generates WebP images for you. So there is a new Google format out called WebP, and those images are about 25% the weight of normal images, and the quality is just the same. So you should definitely get this plugin, run that, and make sure your CDN automatically loads WebP images. Insanity is a plugin that we use. If somebody tries to upload a 8,000 pixel image, it says, well, wait a minute, that's a little insane, and make sure it's only the max size that you have set in your WordPress theme. How many people use the Apple News plugin for getting into Apple News? Okay. That plugin generates about 14 different image sizes. And so if you use that, you have to really be careful and go in and configure it so that you're only using and rendering the images that you want. We love Cloudflare for DNS and infrastructure provider. There's a really cool little piece of software called Heartbeat Monitor. And what that does is it takes a look at, WordPress has this annoying thing called a heartbeat. So if you have 14 editors in WordPress at the same time, the heartbeat is checking what everybody else is doing constantly, and it uses a lot of AJAX, a lot of resources. So this allows you to set that so that you can slow the heartbeat down a little bit, not use up a whole bunch of resources. And WP Control, Crontrol is what's used to manage everything that runs in your basically scheduled jobs. WordPress is kind of weird that it's built to run on any system. So in order to have scheduled jobs run, like if you auto schedule a post, anybody ever get the message that, well, you're all high volume sites, but you get a message that says the scheduled post has missed its date, right? That's because cron, which controls WordPress jobs, only runs when traffic hits the site. So if you schedule something for 1 a.m. and there's no visitors on your site at 1 a.m., that cron is not going to run. And the next time you have traffic, WordPress runs cron and runs. So cron control allows you to see what's there, and you should disable WordPress cron and go into your hosting control panel and say you want to run WordPress cron every 15 minutes. And that's pretty much all you ever need to run it. And then your posts will automatically work within that 15-minute time period. And you're not relying on WordPress to run cron. So if you have 5,000 people on your site at a time, every time a visitor comes, WordPress has to say, do I got to run cron? And by disabling WordPress cron and putting it in your system is just another optimization technique. So this is who we are. PageSpeed, we're out in New Jersey. We're in a country part, which we love. This is how you can reach me. And I just wanted to show you object caching. This was something that we put in for our customers later on as a growth strategy for our business. But there's a 67% reduction in page time. So this is our own BizBuddy website. It's hard to see, but it says it's almost a second to generate that page with no object caching running. And granted, you know, viewing the homepage is a little bit quicker than editing a post. But that, with object caching, is, I can't see it there, 0.2 of a second. So it went from a second to, you know, 0.2 of a second. And basically what happens is your WordPress runs basically out of object caching or in memory. And everything runs so much faster. So when we put together sites, our infrastructure is set up so we have object caching servers, database servers, and web servers. And we distribute that load across the 3 servers, and everything runs in memory in object caching, so it runs really, really fast. I know I threw a lot at you. We'll go back to the screen that had. This is just to emphasize the importance of breaking up your site speed to your user experience. So make sure that you have the infrastructure, make sure that you have the right software, and make sure that all your tools play nice together. And there's a whole bunch of free software you can use to measure that. Was this helpful for you guys? Did it give you good info?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Where was the presentation you mentioned? It's
You can go to our website, bizbudding.com /site-speed-matters, or they're going to send it out to everybody.
okay.
I have one question. I think I understand. When I run, you know, the tests, it's usually Google that comes up as the blocking, you know, the script that's blocking or it's causing